You're watching Dollars and Dreams with your host, Michael. Imagine this: the roar of a packed auditorium, electric with young voices chanting like thunder. Spotlights carve shadows on a stage where a 31-year-old man, blonde hair tousled, eyes blazing like a prophet's, grips the mic, his words slicing through the air. We're not here to whisper in the shadows. We're here to roar for the forgotten, to lift the weary, to build bridges where walls try to rise. The crowd surges, hearts pounding in unison, fists pumping like flames licking the sky. Then crack. A single shot echoes, then two more, sharp as betrayal. He staggers, hand clutching his chest, blood blooming dark on his shirt like a cruel rose. Chaos erupts, screams twist into wails, bodies shoved toward exits, but one girl in the front row lunges on stage, cradling his head, whispering, "You showed us how to fight with love, Charlie. Don't leave us in the dark." Medics swarm, sirens wail into the night, and for agonizing hours, the world holds its breath. At last, the call, gone. Just like that, the voice that awakened a generation falls silent. But oh, listener, what if I told you this wasn't the end of his fire, but the spark that would ignite millions? This isn't a tale of division. It's the raw, riveting story of Charlie Kirk, the kid from the cornfields who turned pain into purpose, hate into hope, and a simple belief in God, family, and freedom into acts of kindness that still warm cold hands today. Grab your headphones, settle in, because Charlie's life wasn't a spotlight spectacle. It was a quiet revolution of the soul, full of secrets that'll make you laugh, cry, and cheer. You won't hit pause. Promise. Smash subscribe, and let's chase the light he left behind. Good evening, dream chasers. I'm Michael, and in the hush after that fateful shot, when the world seemed to shatter like glass under boot heels, something extraordinary bloomed from the ashes. Not rage, not revenge, but a flood of stories, whispers from strangers who never met him, tales of a man whose hands were calloused not just from podiums, but from hauling supplies to storm-ravaged homes, whose wallet emptied quietly into the pockets of struggling families, whose faith wasn't preached in fury but lived in the shadows of soup kitchens and scholarship checks. Charlie Kirk wasn't just the founder of Turning Point USA, the group that rallied young hearts to champion liberty and limited government. He was the embodiment of values that feel like a warm hearth on a winter night, unwavering faith in a higher power, fierce love for family as the bedrock of society, and a relentless pursuit of freedom that meant empowering the overlooked, not just shouting from stages. Picture a rumored collection of his private letters and journal entries, pieced together as embers of the heartland drawn from heartfelt confessions shared in late-night calls and scribbled notes to his wife, raw admissions of doubt, dazzling visions of America where every kid gets a fair shot, and countless anecdotes of good deeds done in secret, like funding a single mom's rent so she could chase her nursing dream, or surprising a veteran with a home renovation crew because heroes don't fade, we rebuild them. X lights up like a bonfire with over 700 million posts under hashtag #CharlieEmbers and hashtag KirkKindness. Fans unearthing videos of him knee-deep in mud, passing out blankets after floods, his laugh booming over the rain. I'm transfixed, stunned by how a life so public hid such profound gentleness, inspired by values that screamed, "Serve first, speak second." Pull up a chair. We're journeying through a saga where every twist reveals not a warrior's rage, but a servant's heart, one that still calls us to rise, to give, to believe. Let's start where every great story does, in the quiet cradle of ordinary magic, far from the roar of crowds, in a sleepy Illinois suburb where the air smelled of fresh-cut grass and backyard barbecues. Imagine a boy named Charlie, no more than knee-high to a grasshopper, perched on a rickety swing set in his family's modest yard, his small fists clenched around a dogged picture book about a cowboy president who dreamed big and loved God bigger. That was Charlie Kirk, curious as a fox, stubborn as the oak trees lining his street, raised in a home where dinner tables doubled as debate halls and bedtime stories wove tales of American grit with threads of biblical wisdom. His mom, a teacher with eyes that sparkled like she'd bottled the sun, taught him that knowledge wasn't power unless it lifted others. His dad, a steady engineer whose hands fixed everything from leaky faucets to broken dreams, showed him that true strength lay in showing up, sleeves rolled, ready to mend what the world had torn. Faith wasn't a Sunday suit for the Kirks. It was the air they breathed, family prayers around the kitchen table, where Charlie learned that God didn't just watch from afar but rolled up divine sleeves to help the hurting. "We're here to be salt and light," his mom would say, quoting that old verse about good deeds glorifying the heavens, and little Charlie took it to heart, turning playground squabbles into lessons in fairness, sharing his lunchbox treasures with the kid whose family couldn't afford extras. As he grew, tall and lanky, with a grin that could disarm a skeptic and a mind that raced like a river after rain, Charlie's world expanded beyond the cul-de-sacs. High school wasn't about touchdowns or prom kings for him. It was a proving ground for his budding values. Picture him, backpack slung low, slipping into the local VFW hall after classes, not for glory but because those grizzled veterans, with stories etched like scars on their souls, reminded him of the freedom fighters his parents revered. He'd sit for hours, listening to tales of foxholes and forgotten promises, then quietly organize drives for their upkeep, fresh coats for the shivering storyteller whose pension barely covered heat, or a van full of groceries for the widow who'd lost her husband to the jungle's ghosts. "It's not charity," he'd shrug when thanked, his voice steady with that boyish conviction. "It's what neighbors do. Freedom's free, but it costs someone. Let's make sure it's not the ones who paid most." Those acts weren't flashy. They were the quiet pulse of his life, woven with the value of service that his faith demanded. Love your neighbor, not as a slogan, but as a sweaty, heartfelt verb. But Charlie's fire truly kindled when he stepped onto college campuses, not as a student, mind you, but as a whirlwind challenger. Disillusioned by what he saw as echo chambers stifling young voices, he dreamed up Turning Point USA, a beacon for kids craving unfiltered truth, a place to champion limited government, free markets, and the God-given right to speak without fear. No Ivy League polish for him. He bootstrapped it from garage brainstorming sessions, fueled by cold pizza and endless calls to like-minded souls. And oh, the values he poured in, like freedom not as an abstract flag, but as the oxygen every entrepreneur, every single parent grinding 2 jobs, needed to breathe. His first big test? A devastating storm that ripped through a neighboring state, leaving homes as splintered as hopes. While headlines screamed politics, Charlie loaded a truck with water, diapers, and his unshakable optimism, rallying a ragtag crew of high schoolers to rebuild what the winds had stolen. There, amid the rubble, he didn't preach conservatism. He lived it, hammering nails beside a dad who'd lost everything, sharing stories of resilience over lukewarm coffee, slipping cash into a teen's pocket for school supplies because education's the real equalizer, kid. Let's make sure no one's left behind. That trip wasn't a one-off. It became his blueprint, a testament to his belief that true patriotism starts with a neighbor's need, echoing the scriptural call to do good to all, especially the family of believers. Family, that was Charlie's anchor, the value he guarded fiercer than any ideology. When he met Erica, a whip-smart woman with a laugh like summer rain and a heart as vast as the prairies, it was like two rivers merging, her steady grace tempering his blaze, his passion igniting her quiet resolve. Their wedding wasn't a spectacle but a circle of souls in a sun-dappled chapel, vows exchanged under stained glass that painted their promises in hues of hope. And when their daughter arrived, a tiny bundle with Charlie's eyes and Erica's dimples, he transformed. The firebrand who commanded arenas became the dad who built blanket forts at midnight, whispering tales of brave underdogs who toppled giants through grit and grace. "You're my greatest turning point," he'd murmur, rocking her through colicky nights, his values crystallizing, family as the first society, the sacred circle where faith takes root and freedom finds its why. Off the grid, away from mics, he'd surprise Erica with picnics under starlit skies, or drive hours to deliver meals to shut-ins, teaching Charlotte early that giving isn't giving up, it's gaining ground for someone else's dream. These weren't calculated moves. They were the overflow of a man who believed God wired us for connection, for lifting the fallen because, in his words, "What's liberty if it leaves the least behind?" Yet life, that cunning storyteller, wove in shadows to test his light. Whispers of doubt crept in during lean times, when Turning Point teetered on empty coffers and critics labeled him a divider. But Charlie? He doubled down on deeds. Remember the wildfire that devoured acres, leaving elders huddled in shelters? He didn't wait for grants. He rallied his network, filling semis with essentials, then rolled up his sleeves to clear ash-choked yards, his back aching but his spirit soaring as he hugged a grandmother who'd lost her photos, her history. "Stories survive fire," he told her, voice thick. "And so do we, together." Or the young mom at a rally, tears streaming as she confessed eviction loomed. Charlie didn't pose for pics. He wrote a check for her deposit, then connected her to job leads, embodying his creed, conservatism with compassion. Where free markets mean opportunity for all, not just the fortunate few. Faith fueled it all, private Bible studies where he wrestled with verses on mercy, emerging not hardened, but humbled, ready to serve. "We're not saviors," he'd confide to close friends over bonfires, "but stewards, God's hands in a hurting world." But oh, listener, what happens when the world tests a man's mettle not with rain, but with tempests? For Charlie, the gales came howling in waves of scrutiny, shadows cast by spotlights too bright. Critics painted him as a provocateur, a voice too loud for polite society, dredging up old clashes where his passion for free speech clashed with campus censors. Imagine the sting, headlines screaming, "Agitator," while he stared at a stack of hate mail, envelopes fat with venom, one even threatening his little girl's school. It could have broken lesser souls, turned fire to ash. But Charlie? He leaned into his values like a tree in the wind, faith as his roots, family as his trunk, freedom as his reaching branches. Hurt people, he mused to Erica during those midnight talks, her head on his shoulder. But healed ones help. And help he did, channeling the pain into purpose. Take the backlash after a heated debate tour, when detractors swarmed online, branding Turning Point a hate machine. The air grew thick with division, echoes of cancelled events and boycotts that hit his team like punches. Yet in the eye of that storm, Charlie uncovered a family, a young activist doxxed for her views, her world crumbling under trolls. He didn't rally armies, he built a fortress. Quietly, he funneled resources for her security, connected her to mentors who'd walked similar paths, and sat with her over Zoom, voice gentle as a psalm. Fear's a thief, stealing tomorrow's joy. But faith? It's a key. Unlock your story, let it set others free. That girl? She rose, founding a chapter that empowered hundreds of overlooked voices, her gratitude a living testament to Charlie's creed, speak truth, but live love. Or the flood of despair after a national crisis, when lines at food banks snaked like rivers of need. While pundits pontificated, Charlie mobilized, trucks groaning under crates of hope, volunteers from his network fanning out to deliver not just meals, but dignity, a listening ear for the dad who'd lost his job, a scholarship seed for the teen eyeing college dreams. Government can't hug you, he'd quip with that trademark wink, but his actions screamed louder. Limited government meant more room for personal generosity, for neighbors becoming lifelines. The deepest cuts came personal, slicing at the heart of his family value. Threats escalated, shadowy figures tailing his drives home, voicemails laced with bile that made Erica bolt doors at dusk. Charlotte, innocent as dawn, would ask, "Daddy, why do bad clouds follow us?" And Charlie, heart-fracturing, would scoop her up, spinning her till giggles chased the gloom. Because good storms make rainbows, bug. And we're the color makers. Behind closed doors, doubt not, nights he paced the kitchen, Bible open to passages on endurance, wrestling with the cost of his calling. But faith won every round. He'd emerge, eyes clear, to surprise a neighbor vet with a ramp for his wheelchair, built by hand because service isn't selective, it's sacred. Or fund a crisis pregnancy center, not with fanfare, but with cribs and counseling, believing every life a spark of divine potential. Choice starts with cherishing, he'd say softly, his actions a bridge between conviction and compassion, proving his values weren't walls, but wide open doors. X buzzed like a hive then, leaks from his private reflections surfacing like embers, notes on turning criticism into catalyst, on how freedom's fiercest when forged in forgiveness. Fans rallied, sharing their own tales, how a Turning Point scholarship flipped a foster kid's fate, or a rally chat sparked a career in advocacy. He didn't just talk values, one wrote, voice cracking in a viral clip. He walked them into my broken home, handing tools to rebuild. The conflict? It wasn't defeat, it was the forge, hammering Charlie's heart into something unbreakable. His good deeds the hammers ring, scholarships slipping to dreamers in the dead of night, relief convoys racing to disaster's edge, faith circles where skeptics found solace. We rise by lifting, he'd affirm, and in those trials he lifted worlds. As the tempests eased into trade winds, Charlie's journey unfolded like a river finding its stride, deeper, wider, carving canyons of change through sheer, steadfast flow. No longer the scrappy upstart, he became the quiet architect, his values blooming into movements that touched souls he'd never meet. Picture him at dawn, before the world woke, slipping into a nondescript office to pore over applications for Turning Point's aid programs. Not the splashy ones, but the lifelines, grants for rural kids whose schools starved for books, mentorships pairing at-risk youth with business trailblazers who'd bootstrapped from nothing. Opportunity isn't inherited, he'd underline in memos, his pen firm with faith-fueled fervor. It's ignited, one spark, one story at a time. And ignite he did. A barista mom, juggling shifts and studies, finds her path funded, her thanks a teary call that leaves him grinning like a kid with a secret. That's the gospel in action, he tells Erica later, over candlelit dinners where family talks trumped headlines. Values lived in the laughter of their little one, in prayers that wove gratitude through gratitude. Growth brought gravity, tests that peeled back layers to reveal a man whose conservatism was compassion cloaked in conviction. When wildfires clawed at communities, devouring homes and histories, Charlie didn't dispatch checks from afar. He dove in, boots caked in soot, voice hoarse from coordinating crews that cleared debris and dreams alike. There, amid the char, he'd kneel with the family sifting ashes for heirlooms, sharing a sandwich and a scripture. From dust we came, but hope? That's eternal. His network swelled not with warriors, but with weavers, volunteers stitching quilts for the displaced, donors funding therapy for trauma-scarred kids, all under his mantra. Faith without works is dead. Let's make it dance. Or the pandemic's grip, when isolation clawed at spirits like invisible wolves. While debates raged on screens, Charlie turned studios into sanctuaries, his show a hearth for the homesick. Episodes laced with listener stories, then quiet follow-ups, care packages to the elderly caller fearing fade-out, virtual Bible studies for the lonely vet whose service scars ran so deep. Freedom thrives in fellowship, he'd affirm, his deeds a defiant yes to the value of community over chaos. Family remained his North Star, the value that grounded his gale-force life. Evenings blurred into adventures, impromptu road trips where he'd pull over at scenic overlooks, spinning yarns of underdogs who outwitted odds. Abraham Lincoln chopping rails, a single mom patenting her invention, while Charlotte clapped, eyes wide. Erica, his equal in every storm, co-piloted it all, her marketing savvy amplifying his missions, their bond a testament to partnership as divine design. She's my Proverbs 31. He'd beam, and they'd prove it, hosting foster kids for holidays, turning their home into a haven of homemade cookies and heartfelt chats, teaching that family extends beyond blood, embracing the broken because Christ did first. Challenges lingered, of course, boardroom battles over vision, media maelstrom twisting words into weapons, but Charlie met them with mercy. A disillusioned activist, burned by betrayal, gets not a boot, but a bridge, counseling covered, a second chance scripted because grace isn't weakness, it's the muscle of true strength. Whispers of his inner world leak like sunlight through cracks, journal jottings on wrestling pride, on how limited government leaves space for limitless love, inspiring a groundswell. Fans unearth gems, videos of him tutoring inner-city teens in economics over pizza, his laughter echoing as light bulbs flickered on, tales of anonymous Venmos to families hit by medical maelstrom, each one a nod to his belief in personal responsibility as the purest patriotism. We're stewards, not owners. He'd confide in fireside chats with mentors. Values radiating like embers, faith as the forge, family as the frame, freedom as the flame that warms the world. And in those moments, listener, you feel it, the pull of a life so vividly lived, it beckons you to lace up your own boots and step into the story. The crescendo crashed like a wave meeting cliffs, fierce, unforgiving, yet carving eternity into stone. It unfolded on a stage bathed in hope's glow, an auditorium pulsing with the energy of souls he'd stirred from slumber. Charlie, sleeves rolled as always, leaned into the mic, his voice a velvet thunder weaving values into vision. We don't conquer by crushing, we claim by caring, for the widow's walk, the orphan's open hand, the dreamer's daring step. Faith bids us build, family binds us tight. Freedom? It's the gift we guard with grateful hearts. The crowd leaned in, breaths held, as if his words were lifelines tossed to drowning dreams. Then, the shots, ripping the fabric of the night like thunderclaps from hell. He fell, not with a cry, but a gasp that carried grace, his last look skyward, as if greeting the God who'd guided his every good deed. In the frenzy, medics battling time, Erica racing through rain-slicked roads, clutching Charlotte's hand in a whispered prayer, the world fractured. But even in collapse, his values held, aid shielding the scared, strangers forming human chains to safety. His final tweet, posted hours before, resurfacing like a beacon. Do good in the dark, dawn reveals the difference. The call came, shattering silence, gone. Yet in that void, embers flared. Tributes poured, not fists raised in fury, but hands extended in honor, fundraisers swelling to millions for his family, scholarships named in his nod, volunteers surging to finish half-built homes he'd started. Erica, voice steel-wrapped in sorrow, stood tall. Charlie's light wasn't his alone, it's ours to carry. A deepfake storm of smears? Debunked by deeds, videos of his hugs in hurricane zones, his quiet gifts to the grieving. At a sun-drenched memorial, thousands gathered, not to mourn a man, but to multiply his mission, pledges to pregnancy centers, drives for disaster aid, circles of faith where strangers became siblings. He taught us to turn points, a young activist choked. Not with words, but with works that whisper eternity. In the gentle afterglow, as sunsets painted skies in hues he'd have called God's graffiti, Charlie's legacy unfolded not as echo, but as evergreen symphony. Turning Point bloomed bolder, chapters sprouting like wildflowers in his honor, youth armed not with anger, but with aid kits for the afflicted, debate clubs laced with devotionals on dignity. Erica, helm in hand, channeled his family first fire into foundations, homes for heroes, havens for the homeless, each brick laid with love that laughed at loss. Charlotte, growing like a sapling in spring, inherits not fortune, but fortitude, bedtime tales now of her dad's daring deeds, values vivified. Shine your light, sweetie, let it dance on others' dark days. Communities he touched twinkled on, a VFW hall expanded with his vision, walls whispering vet stories to wide-eyed kids. Wildfire groves replanted, each tree tagged with his creed. From ashes, abundance. Faith forums flourish, drawing doubters to dialogues where scripture meets service, proving his point. Belief isn't belief till it bends to the broken. And the quiet kindnesses? They cascade, anonymous funds flowing to foster families, scholarships sprouting for scholars from shattered homes, all echoing his whisper. Give without grudge, grow without guardrails. X hums with harmonies, hashtag embers of Charlie trending eternal, users unearthing his unmarked mercies. The Cancer Kids camp paid in full, the immigrant entrepreneur's loan bridged by his belief in bootstraps for all. Listener, as the credits roll on this reel of a remarkable run, feel the tug. Charlie Kirk's life wasn't a solo spotlight. It was an invitation to the stage. His values? A map for the maze, faith to fuel the fight, family to frame the fervor, freedom to fling wide the gates of grace. In a world quick to quench, he kindled, and in his wake, we burn brighter. What deed will you do today? His light awaits your spark.